Right, so this is Dennis from Guitar Lessons Cisco with your tip of the week. Amin Ismail has volunteered to participate, and he asked me about melodic minor. Now, Amin's doing harmonic minor, uh, but as an aside, he asked me about melodic minor, and it's not often used in rock. Yeah, like I'm generalizing here, but a lot more used in jazz. So you would get into melodic minor. This is overview. If you wanted to make your stuff sound more jazzy, or you just wanted to get into, more jazz theory stuff, whatever. But in rock, you don't come across it as often. That's not to say you don't come across it. In fact, I have an article that is called Melodic Minor Not Just for Jazz that happens to be published on Ultimate Guitar. And so, like, if you just go to Ultimate Guitar and you search either Melodic Minor Not Just for Jazz or Melodic Minor My Name, Dennis Wing, and you can find it. And in that article, there it doesn't. This is one disappointing thing about the article. I should have done a YouTube video so the actual video would pop up, but all that pops up is this little link. But it takes you to a Vimeo video where I demonstrate 4 different scenarios. Um, the first one's over a minor chord. When you see a C minor 7, C minor major 7, like if let's say if you had like that sound, like right there. That's begging for melodic minor. What is melodic minor? It's the exact same as a major scale. 1, 2, flat 3. It has a flat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when you see minor major 7, like that, it would be a C melodic minor. We want to try it? I'll pause the video while you try it. Now this is good. This is good. I'm glad I asked you to do that because I forgot to tell you that in classical music, the melodic minor is only used when you're ascending, and when you're descending, you use Aeolian. So it would sound like this. You're nodding your head. You're familiar with that because you used to do classical piano. But in jazz, if you're improvising on a C minor major 7, like something like this. Like it's ascending or descending. We don't do we don't do that stuff that they do in classical music. All right, so that's scenario number 1. Any questions about that? Like, so if you
No, I
see
think.
if you see a minor major 7 chord, that's what you use. Another another scenario that is really cool in my opinion is like the altered sound. If you want to increase a lot of tension, like let's stay in C minor, and then let's say the other chord is G7, right? So you got C minor and G7. Well, what do you play over the over the G7? Oh, and by the way, we're not talking C minor major 7 here anymore. We're just talking regular C minor and G7. Well, most rock guitarists would use like would use C harmonic minor over the G7 because the G7 introduces a natural 7, the B note, right, to the C. You're with me so far, right? But here's a really cool trick. Over the G7, you can use what's called a G altered scale. Altered scale is 1, flat 9, sharp 9, 3, sharp 4, sharp 5, and then like a flat 7. It looks like this. Now, that's very complicated, but this is me trying to explain the tritone substitution in like 5 seconds or less. Um, those are the same notes as a D mixolydian with a raised 4. D flat mixolydian, excuse me. D flat mixolydian with a raised 4. So if you went D flat, which I'm sure you could do, D flat mixolydian with a raised 4. Go ahead, try it.
The raised 4. Okay, so that's like.
Yeah, and then come back down. Now, see if you can do that scale all the way down to G.
Okay. Uh, it's, so,
Good job. This is great. And now you're going to play it all the way from G to G. So you're still thinking D flat mixolydian with a raised 4. The raised 4 is the G. And it should sound like this. Yes, that. So I want you to experiment. I'm going to play C minor. Play anything you want over C minor, like C, C Aeolian, whatever.
okay.
Right? And when we get to the G chord, you'll play. And back to C minor. So let me just demonstrate one more time so you can get the. And then here's your. And there's a lot of tension there, right? So go. I'll pause the video while you try it. Good, good. So you said that was hard, but of course we were just being introduced to it for the first time, so I'm not expecting to be a wizard at it. But you could hear there's a lot of tension, and if that's a sound you'd want, then that would be one reason to consider digging into melodic minor. But let's just do a little theory of what we just did. That was over a G7 altered chord, right? Altered means, just so you know, any combination of flat 5, sharp 5, flat 9, or sharp 9. Had you ever heard that before?
No, actually, I haven't.
Any combination. So G7, flat 9, sharp 5, whatever. Any of those combinations. Sharp 9, flat 5, etc. So what we did was we actually played the 7th mode of A flat melodic minor. Because check this out. If we put this in green, you start at A flat, an A flat scale. This would be A flat, would be the 1. B flat would be the 2. B would be the flat third, because normally you'd have C as the third of A flat, right?
Ah, I see.
You with me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then the 4 would be D flat, 5 would be E flat, the 6 would be F, and the 7 would be G. And so this is A flat melodic minor. It just happens to be the 7th mode of it. Now, according to G, which we already did in red, it's 1, flat 2, flat 3, then a 3, then a flat 5, then a flat 6, then a flat 7. So why wouldn't it be a lot easier to just go up a half step and think melodic minor? Well, yes, you could do that. Most jazz musicians, however, prefer to do it a different way, which is the way we talked about earlier. If you think about the tritone, now tritone means 3 whole steps. So it's 3 whole steps. So a whole step to A flat, a whole step to B flat, and another whole step to.
Sorry, I think it's a whole step to A, yeah?
Yeah, I'm getting confused. A whole step to A. Whoops, would be here. Whole step to A, a whole step to B, and then another whole step to D flat. That's the tritone. Now, why is this preferred to be thought of as a tritone? Well, if you do the tritone here, this would be 1, this would be a 2, this would be a 3, this would be a sharp 4, and this will come out to be mixolydian sharp 4, which is exactly what you played earlier. I'm just putting the theory behind it. This B would be C flat, which would be the flat 7 of D flat. You with me on that?
Yep.
This is called, so let me just name these. This is called Lydian dominant. If you ever heard that before, which is it's kind of an easy name to remember because it's descriptive. Whereas this is altered, or they call another name for altered is superlocrian. Have you ever heard that?
I don't think so.
you don't necessarily need to know all this, but this is just a little. This was supposed to be a short summary, and this is melodic minor. Now the reason this is the last thing I'll explain. The reason you might the jazz musicians might choose to think in D flat in this scenario, like to use the way of thinking for the purple, is because oftentimes jazz chords you can substitute these two chords. The reason you could substitute a G7, the reason you could substitute a D flat 7 for a G7 is because they share the same third and seventh. A G7 is spelled G, B, D, and F, as you know. And what's a D flat 7?
D flat, F, A flat, and C flat.
And C flat. And notice that these two notes are the same.
Right.
And these two notes are the same. So the third and seventh swap for each other. Now the third and seventh are what are functional in a chord. Like besides the root, they give it the chord its function. They tell you whether it's major 7, minor 7, half diminished, etc. And so oftentimes in jazz you may see something like this. Let's say you have what's called a 2-5-1. Again, I'm giving you big stuff here in a short time, but this is just an introduction to it. A 2-5-1 in jazz, which is like your basic, most common pat progression, might be D minor 7 to G7 to C major 7, right?
So I can replace that G7 with a D flat 7?
Say again?
I can replace that G7 with a D flat 7?
Exactly right, yes. So here's D flat 7. Now why would you do that? It's what we call smooth voice leading, because in the bass, now you're only going down by half steps, D to D flat to C. And it sounds a bit smoother. I'm not saying you do that every time, but you can do that. So you have, sound very smooth, whereas this sounds different. It's not as smooth, right? And so thinking this way, even when it's not printed, so what I'm saying is, if this is what's printed on the page, and you think the other way, now you can get stuff like this. Well, let me give you another example. Or 1, 2, 3. Again. One more. That it gives a lot of tension without working very hard. I'm certainly not having to think all this up here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your tritone in a nutshell, and your introduction to melodic minor, and your introduction to Lydian dominant, and the altered scale, and all that stuff. All right. Any other questions there, or is your head spinning?
My head's spinning enough now.
Good. Well, it's fine. It's just an introduction to it. You don't need to dig in. But you could read the rest of my article there. There might be some other scenarios I didn't cover. Over a 6. Oh, the only one I didn't cover. See, the 4 chord and the 5 chord. Those are related. You'll see if you read it. We actually covered scenarios 1, 2, and 4 here. We did not cover over this. But any other, so let me just summarize what that means. Any other chord where it would be a sharp 11, like if you see, you can use melodic minor. So this would be like minor major 7. Here, I shouldn't use the same color because it's misleading. Like I'm associating it with that. So let's use pink. This would be over a chord minor major 7. This would be over a chord like a 7 altered, which we talked about. And then last but not least, this would be more like a 7 with a sharp 11. Because going back to what we were talking about, the sharp 11 is the same as the sharp 4. So as soon as you see a 7 sharp 11, that automatically means Lydian dominant, which is the 4th mode of the melodic minor. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 from A flat. If you understood all that, God bless you.
I got the gist of it.
All right, cool.